is, what will you do with this degree? Will this be worth it? We're going to spend a little time talking about community, cohesion, and resources, but we do want to get this next slide in front of you before we go into those details.
Great, thanks, Marisa. And you all may be looking at this slide wondering, why are they showing me Lego and Nike and Barclays and Univision? And it does feel a little odd for us not to share our college logos, but instead to share some company logos. But our intention behind that was to share some of the places where our graduates end up after they leave our institutions. In addition to these corporations and organizations, our students all land at some incredible graduate school programs as well. But where they started at our 6 different institutions really varies. Students at our institutions study in a wide range of topics, studying everything from economics to the visual arts, to computer science, to history, and so much more. So I encourage you to spend some time on the 6 colleges website learning more about the liberal arts and the value of pursuing a liberal arts degree. But as you can see, we think our graduates are pretty successful leaving our institutions. And we wanted to spend some time talking to you today about how you get from where you are now as students in high school to where our graduates have wound up. And the first step in that journey is finding a place where you can truly belong academically and socially, and a place where you can thrive. So I'm going to turn it to my colleague Windsor to share a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So the decision to go away to college, away from your family, can be a really tough one. And often students feel trepidation around leaving a supportive environment for what feels like the unknown. You're probably interested in finding an academic fit, but you're also probably interested in finding a community fit. And in many ways, going to college is like looking for your next community or home, where you'll find comfort, familiarity, but also be challenged and grow. I know when I was exploring colleges, I was asking admissions officers, are there students like me on your campus, and how are they supported? Each of our campuses will have communities of students who share your background, whichever of your multiple identities is most salient for you. Our campuses offer first generation to college student groups for students who are trailblazers in their family as the first to attend college. These students come together with the support of faculty and staff to learn from each other and find support. For instance, the Williams First community at Williams College includes students who are first in their family to go to college, but also students who are first in their family to travel away from their high school to go to college, or students who are first in their high school to attend a college like Williams. The first generation low-income student office at Swarthmore College brings together students, faculty, staff, all who are the first in their family to attend college. If you're applying to college with the Questers program, you'll find a supportive community of other Questies on our campuses, as well as affinity groups and cultural centers for African American and African students, Native American Indigenous students, Asian and Pacific Islander students, Latinx students, and so many more. Our smaller communities often mean that students' affinity and cultural groups get easier access to funding to bring speakers to campus, bring presenters to campus, host cultural programming, film screenings, and lots of other events. These spaces on our campuses are places where you can find folks who share your experience, but you'll also find folks who will help you think deeply about the role identity plays in all our lives. For the colleges you're interested in, I encourage you to check out college websites for the number of enrolled students who share your experience. Are there students like you on the campus, or will you feel like you're only one of a few? Ask current students about their experiences being a student there, especially if you identify as first generation or low income. For whatever identity is most salient for you, whether you're a student of color, a first generation, a college student, a low income student, maybe an LGBTQ student, it is okay to ask, what is it like to be me on your campus? At each of our colleges, we have a genuine commitment to ensuring that every student thrives. This means having abundant resources to support your academic, personal success, and emotional well-being. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Colby from Pomona College, who will talk more about how students find support on our campuses.
Thanks, Windsor. I just want to let everyone know, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to those questions as soon as we're able to. And now let's hop over and talk about our academics. So all of us specialize in undergraduate education, and it's something that we do really, really well. That's because we put instruction and teaching first at our institutions. Our faculty members all care about teaching first, and that's why they all teach at our schools. And that's not to say that our faculty members aren't doing research and they're not at the top of their fields in research, because they 100% are. But our schools are small by design because we want intimate and small classes taught by faculty who are cutting edge researchers that are just as excited to teach as they are about doing research. At every single one of our schools, we care about the students and not the numbers. And you'll be treated that way through our admissions process and while you're a student at any of our campuses. Mentorship is also a cornerstone of our faculty's responsibilities. We have intentional advisor matching when you're a first year and through graduation. And in many cases, that's with multiple faculty members. So there's a lot of formal and informal mentoring and advising. And talking about being intentional, our schools are among some of the most well-resourced schools in the country. Tied to your academics, that would be our resource centers. The most academically successful students are the ones who are using these resources. So the successful students are the ones using the Writing Center at Carleton, the Math Science Resource Center at Amherst, and our schools have tutors and our faculty have office hours for a reason. It's for you to be able to connect with them when you have any questions or when you're feeling that you're falling behind. The worst thing you can do, and this is from a personal experience, is think that you're the only one in class that doesn't get the homework or doesn't understand the assignment. I can almost 100% guarantee that there's at least one other student or a majority of the class that will feel like they would need help. So take this advice early and use these resources. Don't be a lot of students that try to seek out help when it's too late. And when you go to the Writing Center at Williams, they're going to treat you like you belong. Because to be frank, every student should be using the Writing Centers to look over your drafts, look over mistakes, make sure you understand what the prompt and what your assignments are, just to make sure you're doing the right work and you're submitting the best homework or assignment or essays that you're able to. At our institutions outside of our resource centers, we'll also have certain resource centers that are for your identity. So that could be a queer resource center, that could be one based on your race, being first gen. There's gonna be a lot of resources like Windsor was talking about to make sure that you feel like you're belonging. We also have counseling centers. As was in the case in high school, there will also be moments in college when you feel like the workload, or maybe you have personal issues that are making life stressful, and you may want to talk to someone. So whether you're experiencing whatever your experience is, speaking with a counselor at any of our colleges, we encourage you to reach out to these counseling professionals. They are a lending ear for you and to help you out through any challenging situation. So again, that could be, you're feeling stressed or any type of anxiety because of class or your academics, or maybe you're a student athlete and how to juggle all of that. So the big takeaway is, don't worry that you won't find people who won't share your background or identity at our institutions, because we are we have diverse schools and resources that will make sure that you belong. So take advantage of these resources at our small schools. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jackie at Bowdoin.
Thanks, Colby. And so you may be asking, after hearing this series of comments about what our schools can do to support students, what resources are available for you to really start getting going on that college application process. It is the end of May. It's the end of your junior year for most of you. And we want to make sure that you are set up well to use the summer and the fall ahead of you. So first off, I want to acknowledge that at the end of May is when people sort of start to really ramp up that college search. And we understand that it can be really overwhelming to go from sort of the ideation of college and I think I want to go to college and it's going to be really important for me or for my family that I go to school, all the way to that application and then waiting for decisions. So we've all been there. These are familiar waters for us. And all of us at all of our institutions really prioritize making sure that our applicants have the materials that they need to feel comfortable about applying. So first of all, you're doing great. It is the end of May. You're at a 6 colleges presentation. You're sort of hitting 6 balls with 1 hour-long presentation. So well done. You should really do more things like this in terms of exploring college websites, exploring virtual tours, exploring virtual information sessions, taking advantage of interviews if our schools offer them. We're really in a moment where our colleges are able to offer more and more virtually than we've ever been able to offer. As Windsor alluded to earlier this presentation, part of the thing that you should probably be trying to do is getting to know students at these institutions. So you should look around our website, look around our programs, look around the majors and minors and pre-med track and all of those things that our schools offer. But I also really encourage you to look at social media, to look at ways to get in touch with students, whether that's through our Instagram accounts, whether that's through an Ask a Student page on our admissions websites. That's really the way that you're going to get to know whether a school really looks good for you and whether or not that fit is there. All of our schools also offer fly-in programs, which is when we are able to fund students to visit our schools in person or virtually, depending on how the fall goes. We actually have an entire presentation next week about fly-in programs at our individual schools. And those programs are really designed to make sure that students are able to visit or to learn about our resources and our classes and our students and faculty through these places to see whether or not you really sort of click with schools. And that's what we talk about when we talk about things like fit. These programs are a really phenomenal way for students to learn in the fall when they really winnow down their college list. There are so many different ways for you to learn about our colleges. And we really, really encourage you to spend the next few months before that crunch time, before the application season, to really start building out a really thoughtful college list in terms of things that you think that you might be looking for in size of campus, programs that you're looking for, and really be thoughtful about working through a college list that includes target schools as well as reach schools and safety schools. So how do you get started on those applications? First off, you should decide on what kind of application you are going to be using, be it a coalition application, a common application, or the QuestBridge application. Most of you have heard of the Common App. That is the one that most of our applicants use. You can get right on their website and get started opening an account and starting to mark down sort of biographical details and really thinking through what you want to present in your college application. The coalition application asks all of the same questions that the Common App does, just in a different form. And then for QuestBridge students who are on the call, you've already been through part of the process. You're familiar with the QuestBridge application, and of course we can answer more questions about it. Like I said, the first step to starting is to start now, to start early. So whether that means starting to look for your teachers, for teacher recommendations, I guarantee you that they will really be grateful that you ask them what best their timeline is, whether you ask them for the recommendations now or whether you just ask them when they would prefer. And really starting to talk to your college counselors and other folks at organizations that you participate in about how to think about your college search. Most of all, I really encourage you to reach out to the colleges that you're interested in. All of us here are responsible for reading applications and talking to applicants. It's a huge priority for us that our applicants feel really comfortable reaching out with any questions they may have. We totally understand that for some families, this is a brand new experience, and it's number one on our priority list to make sure that that works for you. Moving right along to Remy, who will speak to the financial pieces.
Thanks, Jackie. So hopefully you're all super excited about the 6 colleges you've heard about thus far. You might be asking yourself, hey, these are world-class educations. Isn't this stuff expensive? Yes, you're right. If you're thinking, yes, it's very expensive. But here's the good news. Most students don't pay that scary sticker price. Okay, so before we launch into too much depth on cost and financial aid, there's a couple of terms we need to sort of differentiate. Okay, first and foremost, need blind. Secondly, need-based aid. Third, meeting full need. Okay, if you're not already sort of deep into the weeds of cost of institutions and how you're going to be able to fund your education, you may not have heard these terms before. And they're very, very easy to mix up because they do sound similar. Let me start with need blind. This actually pertains to the admissions side of the process. Being admitted to a college, right, through the admissions office, and then getting funding through the Student Financial Services Office. Those are two separate processes, okay? And these terms actually cover both sort of sides of the house. So need blind admissions means that we as admissions officers are not considering your family's financial background when making decisions on your file. We're not taking into account at all how much financial aid you will need to attend our institution. Not all of the schools on this Zoom call are need blind, but many of them are. Okay, and as you go through your search process and potentially add more schools to your list, you might find that some are need blind, some are not. Totally okay to ask these questions to admissions officers. Next, when we talk about need-based aid, you may have heard of merit aid. Need-based aid is a little bit different, and it's based purely on financial need, right? It's not any sort of clever attempt at a term. It tries to be pretty straightforward. The simplest way to think about a need-based aid system is the more financial aid you need to attend a college, the more you're going to get. That's really the basis of the funding, right? So families that are pretty well off financially aren't going to get much, right, in a need-based aid system, whereas families that need more are going to get more because they do have greater financial need. Keep in mind, need-based aid means something different than meeting full financial need. There are schools that use a need-based aid system, but still gap, right, in their packages. So they might cost $50,000 a year to attend, right? And they'll say, hey, you're a really needy student. Based on our need-based aid system, we're going to give you $40,000, right? Because we know you need quite a bit to attend. That might leave your family with a $10,000 gap that you're still unsure about how to cover, even though it's a very generous financial package. The 6 colleges represented on this Zoom call are just sort of a smattering of schools that meet full need. There aren't many of us nationwide. In fact, I think there are fewer than 100. Okay, so it's a pretty big deal to say that not only do we use a need-based aid system, but that we meet full need, okay? And when you sort of break that down into a simple mathematics equation, we take the cost of attendance, right, bordering on about $80,000 for many of us, in fact, all of us, right? We subtract your family's EFC, or estimated family contribution. If you don't know what that number is yet, you will. When you fill out forms like the CSS profile and the FAFSA, it'll kick back a number at you, right? Saying this is your family's estimated family contribution. Realistically, what your family can put toward the cost of college. That number ranges from 0 to $1 million, right? After $1 million, you're good. We don't need to estimate anymore, right? So basically we take the cost of attendance minus your family's EFC, whatever is left, that's your financial aid package, right? So there's a world in which the cost of attendance is $80,000. Your financial aid package could be $80,000 if your estimated family contribution is 0. Okay, again, important to note, we do not do gap packaging. We meet full financial need for all admitted students. All of the schools on this call are committed to making sure that students also graduate in 4 years, right? So on top of having really generous financial aid packages, we're really focused on getting you in and out in 4 years, right? And as much as we love you and we want you to stick around campus, it's important, right, that we get you in and out what we consider on time. Right? Not only does it cost more to attend college for longer, but if you're in college beyond 4 years, you're missing out on earning potential, right? You're missing out on years where you could be working and either paying off student loans that you might have, kicking in money to help your family, or just starting to build up your own personal savings. All of the resources that my colleagues talked about earlier on this call are going to help you. There's a reason we all boast about being small colleges, right? That are community focused, community driven, that value support. Right? The reason students struggle on college campuses is often not because they aren't smart enough. It's because perhaps they don't know what resources to seek out, or they can't get their hands on certain resources. They can't get the support that they need. And being at a college that values that small environment really puts a focus and a spotlight on those different support systems. So when we ask, are schools expensive? Yes, all of these schools are really expensive. That being said, I'd actually encourage you, instead of asking, hey, is it expensive to go to your school, or what's the sort of total cost, the sticker price of this college, ask yourself, can I afford this? It's really important to look at not only the cost of the college, but the cost of our institutions in tandem with the financial aid packages. Because again, most students aren't paying those big, scary sticker prices, right? If you're not, or excuse me, if you don't have any idea how generous our financial aid packages might look for you, or if you've never sort of done a deep dive into this, I'd encourage you to do it. I'll be honest, when I first looked at Carleton College and the cost was under $40,000 a year, about half of what it is now, I immediately dismissed it. I crossed it off my list because I was certain I wouldn't be able to afford it, right? And for context, I was an EFC 0 kid. My family could put $0 toward college. So I thought there was no way in heck I'd be able to afford a place like Carleton, right? I didn't know anything about a need-based financial system. I didn't know anything about colleges that would meet full need. So if you find that you're in a position where you're like, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be feasible for my family, there are financial aid calculators on all of our websites. We also have this really cool tool called My Intuition, right? Net price calculators are available nationwide for pretty much any school you're looking at. But the My Intuition program is actually pretty select, and it's only a small number of schools that have it. It's basically a condensed version of the net price calculator. It's not quite as specific, but if all you're looking for is a ballpark figure, it's a really good place to start. It only takes a couple of minutes, right? So again, if you're just looking to get an idea, hey, can my family do this? Is this even possible? That's a really good place to start. I mentioned the FAFSA and the CSS profile before. Those are documents that you'll be very familiar with by the end of your college search and application process. As a reminder, the FAFSA is free. A lot of students make the mistake of getting on the wrong website for the FAFSA. There's a FAFSA.gov, a FAFSA.com, a FAFSA.edu. If you're on a website that's trying to charge you, it's the wrong one. So make sure you are not paying anything for the FAFSA. The CSS profile, conversely, there is a cost associated with it, but the same way Jackie talked about fee waivers for applying to different colleges, there are fee waivers for the CSS profile. Okay, so if you think, hey, this is a real financial barrier for my family, we can't fill this out, ask your guidance counselor at your high school or call and ask one of us, right? If you want to apply to one of our schools and you can't figure out how to make it work, call us or email us or whatever. We're happy to assist. I want to note one final thing before we move to questions. Some of you on this call might be saying, hey, I'm not a US citizen. How does all of this apply to me? I want to reiterate that we meet full financial need for all admitted students, regardless of citizenship, right? So whether you are a United States citizen, a permanent resident, whether you have DACA status, you're undocumented, you're an international student, regardless of what your citizenship background, we will meet full financial need for all 4 years. Now, we may ask you for a different set of forms, right? The FAFSA, for example, is a federal form. So if you're an international student, FAFSA doesn't apply to you. But regardless of which documents and which forms we're asking you for, we are going to meet full financial need, okay? So we've thrown a lot at you, ranging from financial aid to applications to support on campus. We know you might have some questions, so we want to make sure we leave time for that. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to type your question in the Q&A box, please do so. We are here to chat with you more about what's on your mind.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. While we're on the topic of affordability, there is a question here I want to start with. Are these colleges also need blind when deciding who gets off the wait list?
That's a good question. I can't speak for the other institutions. I know that Carleton is not, because at that point we have to make sure we have not blown a budget. So it looks like others are nodding yes. Similar system, it looks like. Okay, so it seems like
I think it's going to vary at all of the 6 schools. You're still very far away from waitlist time and process. If you're a current junior in high school, if you're on current wait lists, let's talk. Certainly, I think those are conversations that are really individualized. So just a little hard to give a full policy answer across all 6 of our schools. Thanks for giving it a shot, Remy.
Another question along similar lines, how does financial aid look for working professionals considering a second undergraduate degree?
So I can't speak for all institutions, but again, for the 6 of us, we meet full financial need. Doesn't matter if you're a working professional, it doesn't matter if you're younger than the average bear on our campuses. Like if you are attending one of these 6 schools, we meet full financial need.
Shifting a little bit, how are undocumented or DACA students supported at these colleges? Are there designated staff at these colleges that help out that community of folks specifically?
I can speak for Bowdoin, but also I'm sure that a lot of our campuses look really similar. The support that Windsor and Colby spoke to is available to all of our students on all of our campuses. I know at Bowdoin that one of our deans, Eduardo, actually has in his title that he serves DACA and undocumented students as part of his job. All of our schools have versions of these resources, be they specialized offices for first-generation students, transition to college, our first-year dean's offices, our student dean's offices. Our schools are really set up in such a way, because we're so small, we're able to make sure that students don't fall through the cracks. A lot of this was really visible in COVID, when all kinds of student populations on our campuses were affected by all kinds of travel restrictions and different circumstances. And all of our schools were able to go above and beyond, be it through technology, housing, travel, whatever it was. Our offices are designed to make sure that our students have really comfortable experiences. So I know at Bowdoin, we have a person who has DACA and undocumented students under their job title. That's likely similar to a case across my other 5 colleagues. And the key thing that I think that we talk a lot about in these sessions intended for first-generation students is that we have all of the supports, but the reason why these sessions like these exist is because we need to make sure that students know what to ask for when they get there. I was a student at Bowdoin, and one of the education professors told me that actually the question, like, we all have things like tutoring and counseling and offices that will offer to take notes for you and writing centers. And the biggest problem was that students weren't seeking them out. It's not that we didn't have them, it's that students don't know to ask for them. And so we have these sessions to make sure that we sort of get you on the same page, that when you show up day 1 at Williams or Carleton or Pomona or Bowdoin or any of us, that you know exactly whose door to knock on when you need help. And that goes for international students, domestic students, first-generation students, students who are legacy students. All of our kids and students have a wealth of resources available.
Thank you, Jackie. Next question is, do students have to have many leadership positions to be considered as a qualified or competitive student?
Not at all. I would say we're all looking for different types of students. I think Stephanie said this a couple of days ago. We can't all have just 100% leaders on our campus because then nothing's gonna get done. Like, right? We need followers. We need a whole group, like everyone on campus to be doing different things, right? So what we're looking for when we're looking at your activities, we're looking that you're passionate about a few things, right? It doesn't mean necessarily any leadership positions, but being able to articulate what you do and why you did certain things is important to us, right? Giving us context of maybe I have a part-time job, or I have to babysit my siblings because my mom, dad, or guardian works full-time, or maybe 2 jobs at a time, right? Giving us those types of context to paint a better picture and a fuller picture of what you do academically and what you do, in school or out of school. That's more important.
Thank you, Colby. Next question. This student says, I'm a first-generation American and my parents have not graduated high school. How would your schools assist my family in that process if they are not aware of the nuances of the application process?
I'm happy to jump in and take this one. It's a really good question. And I think I similarly struggled in explaining the application process to my parents. And I know for many of us on this screen, that's why we do this work now as your admission officers. And that's why we care so much about making sure that you know about our institutions and how to apply. A lot of our colleges offer family programs and events. So that can be a really good way for you to connect your parents especially if you're looking for bilingual programming or additional programming for first-generation students. Definitely encourage you to look at our 6 schools and see what we have coming up over the summer and in the fall virtually for families to connect. You can always reach out to your admission officer as well. So we'll share our 6 email addresses in the chat later. And that can be a great way for you to just connect individually with us. And we're always happy to connect with parents and help explain this process on kind of a one-on-one level, or even to connect your parents with other parents who've been through this process. So lots of different ways for you to kind of navigate those next steps. You know, I know not every family has a great family situation where parents are involved in the process. If you do have that, I really encourage you to bring your parents along for the ride. It makes it a lot more fun. It really makes it a really incredible experience when you get to say, like, I am the first woman in my family to graduate, and like, we all did this together. It is a pretty impressive thing. But beyond that, they'll also be there as your guideposts and your go-tos throughout your 4 years as well. We have great resources on our campuses, but if your family is important to you, it's important that you keep them with you through this process as well.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. Regarding financial aid, if a student doesn't know if they want work study when they apply for aid, but decide in their first semester that they do want a work study job, is it possible to adjust their financial aid package accordingly? And regarding work study jobs, are they assigned jobs or ... What happens?
I'm curious to hear what the ... is. So again, similar to a question earlier in the evening, the precise policy and steps you need to take, it's going to look a little different at every institution, right? That being said, these are institutions that are designed to support students financially when they want to work. We realize that's a really important part of the experience for a lot of students, right? Because you might be relying on that $2,000, $2,500, whatever it is, to pay for your books, to pay for your plane ticket home, whatever the case may be, right? So I would imagine there is a policy in place at each of our institutions to allow you to get that work study job, even if you decide early in the year, you know what?
Oh, I think we lost Remy. Anyone else want to pick up where Remy was?
Student Financial Services Office, right?
That's all right. We will next question, and hopefully Remy will catch up with us. There's a good question here. If we're interested in a few of the 6 colleges, should we keep in touch with different advisors from each college, even though we will only end up picking one college to attend?
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully you can pick up on some of the energy here, which is that all of us like to talk about our institutions, and really we're endeavoring to be as helpful as possible to students who are going through our process. It is literally our job every single fall to talk to every student who comes to our inbox, into our tours, into our virtual information sessions, into our interviews, whatever it may be. Honestly, you should be in touch with a number of institutions if those are the schools that you are interested in. You should be asking us questions about our schools, what we can offer you. You can be in touch, by the way. There's a lot of questions about student aid, and Remy has done an incredible job talking about student aid. All of our financial aid offices are open for conversations even before you apply. And all of us really encourage students, and I think Remy already said this, to start talking to the financial aid office even before you submit your application. That is one of the best things that you and your family can do to really start to understand what college may look like, and to make sure that when you do, frankly, get the admissions package, that you don't open it and have your jaw hit the floor because of what you're looking at, for better or for worse. So I know at Bowdoin, like when you go through our My Intuition calculator, at the end, there's literally a button that says, email this to a student aid counselor and schedule an appointment. Slash something, again, very similar with our 5 colleges or 5 other colleges of being able to get in touch with student aid. So be in touch with the admissions people, be in touch with student aid people, ask as many questions as you need to. This is a huge decision. So yes, we understand that you'll only attend 1, you'll break 5 of our hearts. But up until then, we are at your disposal for those questions.
I really like this question, and maybe one or two of us can answer this. This student says, maybe this question is kind of off topic, which to that I will say no question is off topic. Please ask any question you have. But I would love to know, what was the most memorable essay you all have read? This is a challenging one because I'm sure we could all pick a few, but maybe just comment on one or two.
I have one right off the top of my head that I always think about when I get this question, because I think it really illustrates both the importance of the essay, and hopefully we'll turn the temperature down on what you all think you have to do in your essay. So my favorite essay that I've read is one a student wrote about working at 7-Eleven. If you're not familiar with 7-Eleven, it's a convenience store, gas station, a job lots of high school students have, places like that. It was great about the essay that student talked about working there in a big city, and the people walking into the 7-Eleven to pick up their coffee were the business folks before their big business meeting to get their pick-me-up. It was the construction workers that worked across the street on the building. They were coming and having their food, getting a meal in. The homeless guy was outside shaking a cup to get some cash as folks were walking in. And the student wrote about this 7-Eleven being a space where all these different communities, construction workers, business people, the unhoused, were coming together in the one space. And the student couldn't really think of another place in which that happened. And why the essay was so wonderful was because it spoke to how the student thought about community and thought about what was important to them in the community. And it also illustrated that you don't have to, take a mission trip to an impoverished country. You don't have to have something awful that happened to you to write about, right? You can find something in your essay that shares the essence of who you are, a piece of who you are, something that's important to you. It doesn't have to be this big, impactful thing that happened to you. It can be everyday things as well.
Anyone else want to take that too? All right, we'll leave it for now. Oh,
jump in. I do have a favorite. I was just waiting to see if my colleagues wanted to say anything. So I will say sometimes it's just, who's reading your essay, and you can't plan for that, and you shouldn't plan for that. But my favorite essay that I've ever read was a student who's currently at Williams, who wrote about riding the train from Boston to Providence, from Massachusetts to Rhode Island. And that is a train ride that I am very familiar with from my own childhood. And he spoke about sort of on the train, mentally transitioning from being at his mom's house during the week to going to his dad's house on the weekends, which was also an experience that I had had in high school. And so it just very much resonated with me on many levels. But I think above and beyond that, showcased a lot of what Windsor was just talking about, kind of his day-to-day life, right? Just riding the train back and forth, kind of doing some code switching in his head, or cultural switching from one parent's house to the other parent's house. And those were topics that I think really gave us a sense of how that student navigated their high school experience and how they might continue to navigate the world around them when they moved to a college campus. So also probably helps that he's like one of my favorite students on campus currently and a great tour guide, but really good essay.
Awesome, thank you. Next question is, to what extent do your schools finance study abroad opportunities?
Yeah, I'll say, as Remy said earlier, it's going to vary a little bit, but at our institutions, we want to make sure that financial circumstances won't affect you from participating in any activity, rather that be studying abroad, going on a field trip, doing research, internships. We want to make sure that we'll fully fund as much as we can, and how much will we determine that your family needs. We'll all help as much as possible to make sure you can do these experiences.
Thank you. Next question, in your opinion, which I guess maybe one or two of us can answer, what makes a person stand out in their application?
I'll hop in here and say the only acceptable answer is authenticity, because there's not one single trait or characteristic. Yes, you're all nodding with me, so they all agree. You're hearing it from all of us. It's authenticity. Students make the mistake so frequently of thinking, we want a certain type of student. We want a certain type of personality, a certain type of way that you think, a certain approach to life. We don't. We really don't. We just want you, every part of you, right? There's a reason we all talk about wanting a diverse campus, right? Full of diversity of thought and ideas and experiences, because we genuinely mean that, right? Our campuses and our classrooms are so much more interesting when they're filled with a wealth of different ideas and approaches to life, right? So regardless of your background, regardless of, you know, the way that you think, like, know that we want you just as you are, and as much of yourself as you can put into the application, the better.
Jumping back, a question came in while we were talking about essays. This student wants to know specifically, if I have an interesting life story to share in general, should I write about that, or would you prefer I write about something more specific?
That's a great question, and I'm happy to take a shot at it. So in relation to the earlier question and now, all of us read hundreds, if not thousands of essays a year. And I think even just with the 2 essay examples that you heard, and the other 4 of us will have our own examples of things that worked, none of them at first blush seem like the best essay that you could ever write, right? Like when I say one of my favorite essays was about a kid who decided to buy a water bottle, that's weird, right? Like that doesn't sound like an award-winning essay, and it was amazing. And so what I really encourage students, experiences are great. A lot of you have lived experiences that have really shaped you and are really important to you. Where I encourage you to start is to think about how us as readers at our desks in January, what you want us to walk away from your essay knowing about you. And that can be like, you know, you can say like, I want Williams to know that I really care about my family. Or you can say, I want Swarthmore to know that I'm a really curious person. We did this the other night, and all 6 of us, I think, described our schools as, our students as curious, right? Or you can say, I want that person at Amherst to really understand how important it is to me to hear diverse perspectives. Think about what you value and then work backwards from there to talk about your life experience. And it can be, right? Like it can be across your 18 years, or it can be one conversation that you had that really expresses that value, so that when we walk away, Remy says, wow, that person is so thoughtful about how they think about themselves in relation to others, or how they think about math or cooking or whatever it is. So I think that students, and my colleagues are welcome to join in here, I think that students sometimes get hung up on stories as opposed to values. And I really encourage students to start thinking about values first and then follow with the stories, because that's really what lets us come on to one of these info sessions and say, wow, that's the essay that I remember. For what it's worth, my favorite essay this year, like, because you have to separate them by year, was by a student who found a bird on the ground and tried to take care of it. It didn't go great, but he expressed that he finally, for the first time in his life, experienced what it must be like to be a parent and to watch your children try to make their way through lives without necessarily being able to give anything back. But like, dude found a baby bird on the ground, you know? So like there are these moments that you can sort of pick up on that are not inherently, they don't inherently scream college essay, but they can turn into really beautiful pieces of writing.
The poor birdie, though. Thank you for sharing that, Jackie. Next question. Do you accept any college credits earned during high school?
Go ahead, Windsor.
Oh, I'm assuming that refers to maybe advanced placement courses or dual enrollment courses. I'm assuming the student might be asking about that. I think so. So I think we all maybe accept advanced placement courses. I think the really important thing, I saw another question in the Q&A here asking about, should I take AP courses if I have them offered to me? And our advice, I think, is always take challenging courses if they're offered to you. I think when you go to college, it's going to be challenging and hard and difficult in lots of new ways. So you want to prepare yourself for that. And we can do that is to take challenging courses offered at your high school. Should you take every single advanced placement course your school offers, your high school offers? No, you shouldn't do that, right? Take the courses that that interest you and that or that you know you're going to do well in. Challenge yourself in ways that you want to be challenged in the coursework. Maybe your school doesn't offer advanced placement courses or dual enrollment courses or international baccalaureate courses. That's okay, right? We're looking at you in your context at your school, what's offered at your school. How are you challenging yourself in your environment that you're in? So your school doesn't offer these advanced placement courses or dual enrollment courses, not at a disadvantage. You should take care of those, take advantage of those challenging courses that are offered at your institution to help prepare yourself for college. Hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Windsor. And I can see actually, Windsor, I think you're starting to answer one of these questions in the chat, but I think it's a good one for us to talk about. It says, I know colleges want motivated students with high potential, but is it okay to admit that you don't exactly know what career you want after graduation? I want to learn and expand my horizons in college, not just focus on my intended future career, especially because it might change.
Windsor is clapping. We're all smiling. Welcome to the liberal arts, my friend. That is great. Many students change their mind about their college pathways when they're in college. None of us went to college thinking we were going to be admission officers. So certainly it's okay to figure out your next steps during your time. That's part of what's so great about being at a small liberal arts college is that you'll be in really small communities that are intentional about building relationships with faculty so that you can navigate those spaces and places and figure out what is the right step for me, what feels right for me as I'm sort of moving through not just these 4 years and summers and internship experiences, but also thinking about what kind of an impact do I want to have on the world around me? So absolutely, it is a-okay. I think when we showed the slide of logos from corporations, our goal was to say there's no one way for you to get to these places. There are many different pathways for you to get there, and it's totally great for you to explore during your 4 years.
Thank you. Another one I think that is good to talk about is what does it mean when colleges say that race and ethnicity is part of holistic admissions?
Yeah, it means that it's one piece of the pie that we're looking for, right? We're looking to create a very diverse community, and that includes, right, students that are from different ethnic or racial backgrounds, students that come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, students that come from all over the country, that come from all over the globe, students that have different lived experiences, right? We take all of that into consideration, as well as, right, your GPA, what rigorous courses you took, what your essays tell us, what activities you've done, right? So we're looking at all of that as a whole pie, and that's just one piece of it.
Awesome, thank you, Colby. Next question, are clubs and volunteering hours important to colleges?
I can answer that. Yes, for some students, right? Like for some students, volunteering is the thing that you love, and then you should volunteer, right? Like, and we see some students who come through who have 5 different volunteer opportunities, and that's what they love doing. We also see some students who use the common application to tell us, I have been unable to volunteer or play soccer or participate in clubs because I've had a part or full-time job. I've been caring for family. For a lot of you, your extracurriculars changed significantly last year during the pandemic. Can't play soccer for a lot of that time. So yes, if it's what's important to you. This all gets back to the question, eons ago, 20 minutes ago, when Remy said that we're looking for authenticity in your application. We don't admit, as I think Colby said, 100% of volunteers, right? And nor are our student bodies made up only of people to whom volunteering or extracurricular activities in a certain shape are important. What we're looking for are people who will come here and be interesting and wonderful, and you'll be great in our classrooms and you'll be great in our dining halls. I think that students often worry that like we're looking for like a 1-for-1 trade, right? Like this kid plays the violin, they're gonna have to come here and play the violin. That's not why we're taking you, right? We're taking you because you like to play the violin and you also teach violin. And we think that's interesting, right? We think that's interesting because if you come here and you discover that you love juggling, that you probably will want to teach your friends how to juggle. And that to us makes an interesting campus. So students often, I think, fear that we're looking for like specific opportunities or specific volunteerism or specific clubs, because we really need to fill our chess club. A, if you play chess, that's amazing. We have chess clubs. But B, if you come here and you're like, I liked chess in high school and I don't like it now, we know that you're going to take that same passion and apply it to something else in our campuses to be incredible here. So yeah, if you like volunteering, then it is important for your application. If you don't volunteer, but you do something else, then that's something else that's what's important.
Well said, Jackie. Next question, how do your colleges support students in finding jobs? And another part of this is, do your alumni associations have fees?
I can jump in since I handled the employer logo slide. I'm happy to jump back in here. So it's interesting. I didn't go to Williams, but I found my way to Williams through a Williams alum. So definitely the alumni networks at our 6 colleges care deeply about our students. They really are folks that are driven by small liberal arts colleges that care deeply about building those relationships with students and making sure that they land and launch in terms of their career paths and pathways after college. So yes, you should definitely get keyed in and clued into the alumni associations. But above and beyond that, all 6 of our institutions also have really comprehensive career centers that will be a really great hub for you as you're navigating your time, both during college and after college. I think another important thing to remember is that the college isn't going to do the work for you. You still have to do a little bit of that work yourself too. So getting yourself to that career center is important. They'll reach out and they'll say, hey, schedule an appointment with us. But then it's on you to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet with an alum. I'm going to get to know somebody. It's not scary, we promise. It's actually really fun. And it's a really great way for you to start to map out early on in your freshman and sophomore years of college, kind of thinking broadly about your career path. And then as you get closer to graduation, kind of narrowing that in and really honing in on what your next step will be post-graduation. So it's great to start those conversations early with the Career Center, with your faculty advisors, and also with the alumni.
Erin has come in with yet another very thought-provoking question. It might be the last question, depending on how many of us would like to answer this a little bit, but could you explain the difference between a liberal arts college versus a research college? What do colleges mean when they say they are both?
Huh? I'm like, this is like a race to unmute. This is great. All right, so first of all, you should think of college types more as a spectrum, which I think will help you sort out a little bit closer to what we're getting to. So on one end, there's small liberal arts colleges. So the 6 of us, the 6 colleges are all small liberal arts colleges. What that means for us is that we do not have any graduate students. All of our schools are focused 100% on the undergraduate experience for 4 years. We have small class sizes. There's a big focus on writing. There's a big focus on seminar style classes, or at other schools, tutorial style classes. But really small liberal arts colleges are focused on that particular undergraduate student experience of focusing, we like to say, not just on what you learn, but how you learn it. Across the spectrum are research universities. Research universities are huge, right? Like you'll think of state schools, you'll think of really large schools, all of these schools that have university in their name, they'll have 20,000 undergraduate students, and then varying sizes of graduate schools, be they bigger, smaller, etc. The majors at these 2 different kinds of schools really do differ. At small liberal arts colleges, you'll major in a subject, things like history, biology, mathematics, computer science. At these larger schools, you'll also have that option, but you'll have more career-focused options as well, such as schools of journalism or business or education. The part of the question that I want to make sure that you understand are that both of these schools at both ends of the spectrum do both of those things, right? Large research universities can have small classes, and small liberal arts colleges do world-class research. So I wouldn't worry so much about whether or not you can do research. Like, all of us are nodding because we always get the question, can I do research? Of course you can. Like, we're colleges, right? Like, we do research, and we do really extraordinary research, and you can have at all of our colleges the experience to do research in the first half of your academic career, because there are no graduate students who are doing that level of research that you will be doing. At larger universities, which you could also be looking at, all of them will have smaller colleges within them in which you will get faculty focus and you will get those smaller classes. So it's just a question of sort of where you want to go to school, the experience that you want to have, what you want to major in. All of those things sort of collapse into what kind of school you want to go to. But small liberal arts colleges have a really big focus, like I said, on that undergraduate education and all of these beautiful locales. You can see all of the sort of rolling hills and grassy quads. But make sure that you sort of understand that you can major in across the spectrum at small liberal arts colleges, and you can do world-class research at our schools. Hopefully, we could do a whole session just on that difference, but hopefully that was like a good intro.
I hope that everyone takes away grassy quads from that answer. I really enjoyed that term, Jackie. Thank you for that answer. We are about 2 minutes away. There's one more question, and it looked like Jackie was starting to answer it in the chat, but anyone can answer. How can I determine what schools are a reach for me and which are target?
It's a good question. And this is a tough one because we don't know you. So it's hard to answer that in a really general way. I'll say first, check in with your college counselor and school community resources that you have, whether that's a teacher that you have a great relationship with who's talked to you about the college process, a college access organization in your area, or your school counselor. Those folks are typically the best folks to start the conversation with, because they do know you and they do know what your grades look like and what the coursework that you've taken is, and what you're excited about in pursuing as your next steps. The other thing I will say is thinking about selectivity. We're all 6 great places, but we're all highly selective places. So while we love having conversations with students, we recognize that at the end of the day, we're pretty small colleges. Each of our freshman classes is anywhere between like 300 and 600 incoming students. And so we can't admit all of the incredible students that we really get to know and that we think would be successful and would really soar on our campuses. We just have limited seats. So also thinking about in terms of sort of reach or likely, or whatever the words that your school is using for kind of creating your college list, thinking about the fact that even if, all 6 of us read your application and all said, you're awesome, we'd love to admit you, sometimes there's just not enough space in the class. So really making sure that you have a balanced list that balanced list has really great financial options for you as well. That's probably all I can say by 9 p.m. But lots more that we can share offline as well. So feel free to email us. I know our emails are in the chat.
Yes, we are out of time, but thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues for your thoughtful answers. Thank you for the great questions that you all asked. I think we actually got to all of them tonight, so go team. But certainly please reach out if any questions come up, or if we didn't fully answer one that you had, please feel free to send us an email. Thank you for coming and have a great night.